Hey everyone, it's Terry with the Des Moines User Group in Iowa. And we had a presentation this last week from Cheryl Feldman regarding the authorization experience and best practices, some of the changes that are happening on the permission sets and profiles. And it was fantastic. You're going to want to watch this video. It gives you a peek into some of what you can expect to see over the next year, year and a half, two, maybe, whatever. But take a look at this video. You're going to love it. Hey everyone, it's Terry with Terry's Tidbits. I am so glad you're here. So welcome again. Very excited to have Cheryl with us today, talking about some of the changes that are taking place on user management and some of the security sides of things. Anxious to see what she has for us. So welcome, Cheryl, and we'll introduce you a little bit more here in just a couple of minutes. But Clarissa and myself, we are your user group leaders here in Des Moines for the admin group. We also have Karen and Joseph leading our nonprofit group. I don't know if either one of you are on, but if you have anything you'd like to quickly add, I'll let you have a moment. All right, moment's taken, and we'll move on quickly. On our developer user groups, we have Jerome and Sulab. Either one of you on? No, I don't see your names either, but feel free to check out what they have taking place in their various groups. I know they're always pretty excited to hear from the team as well. So, upcoming things here locally with our group. Our next Lunch and Learn is on the 16th. It'll be related to mastering your Salesforce career. I'm hopeful to have one of the Salesforce educators, the people who teach some of the Salesforce classes, actually come and be online to present some things from a certification standpoint. So that's what I'm working on for next month. And then I wanted to point out April 21st, that's our next hybrid meeting. That one will be an in-person meeting with Stuart Edel. He is going to be talking about design thinking. This will be a in-person meeting, and Stuart will be on site with us as well. So if you can make it on site out to Holmes Murphy, would love to actually see you in person for that meeting. I figure if Stuart can make it, hopefully maybe more of us can make it on site at the same time. So that's it. This particular presentation that he's done. I've seen it before. It is absolutely fantastic. It's really around how to create meaningful user interfaces for our users. So it'll be a really nice meeting. So hopefully you can all make it out for that. Our other meetings that are coming for the rest of the year are listed down there. We are going to get back into some flow training for those of you that are still learning some of that. And then, so get signed up and registered for those. Upcoming events that are happening outside of our community. We have several Dreaming events listed that are coming up. Trailblazer DX also. March 8th, 7th and 8th out in San Francisco. Do we have anybody attending that? Show of hands.
I will change it again.
I am.
All right, good. Very good. Our Slack channel, for those of you who are Slack fans for our group, I'll leave that up for just a minute. And then my last slide is just simply going to be a welcome slide. So again, welcome everybody. Very excited to have you here with us today. So back to our main event is Cheryl Feldman, and I am super excited to have her join us and be able to share with us some of what's taking place, some of the changes that are taking place in the area of user management and some of the security changes. Not 100% sure exactly which direction she's going to take us today. But I want to give her as much time as absolutely possible because this is going to be fantastic. I've seen some of, I think, what she's going to share, unless she surprises me, which is all good. So Cheryl, thank you for coming. If people don't know who Cheryl is, she is the product manager. She is a project product manager at Salesforce, responsible for it sounds like user.
So user access control is my full feature area, which
There we go.
recently I was managing an area called authorization experience, which is how users get authorized to features. But I've recently expanded my role, and so now I cover all of user access. This is something I'm really excited about. But what we're going to be focusing on today, which I know is probably a very hot topic, is I'm going to talk about some best practices, and I'm going to give you some roadmap, and it's specifically around the ending of life of permissions on profiles. And I think I might have seen actually one of my really awesome colleagues join. Is Gonzalo there? Did I just see him join? Gonzalo is here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, Gonzalo is literally one of my favorite people ever. And so Gonzalo and I will be presenting together at Trailblazer DX. And we're doing, so Terry, I think the session that you mentioned that you saw at Dreamforce was the future of user management.
Yes.
We're doing it again, and we're going even deeper. And so Gonzalo covers all of custom schema. So that's your custom objects, custom metadata types, custom fields, everything that's custom. There's a ton of other stuff. And we're working very closely together to improve all sorts of experiences for admins. And he loves talking to the community also. And I thought maybe it'd be good to have him here, not necessarily to present it all, but just so we can hear any sort of questions that are coming in, so we can make sure that we cover additional things if we need to in our presentation at TDX.
See why I like Cheryl so much. She's awesome. So I'm gonna be quiet, Cheryl. I'm gonna go on mute, and you've already kind of taken over, so I'll let you continue.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you again.
Yeah. So let me share my screen here. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it looks great.
Oh, okay, great. So as I mentioned, I'm a product manager here at Salesforce. I report into platform. So just so you know where I sit in the organization, I report into somebody by the name of Ian Glazer, who's the SVP, covers all of identity, authorization, user access control. He covers all of those features, and he reports directly to Patrick Stokes. Patrick Stokes is our head of platform, so you know where I am in the organization. And I'm sure you've seen this slide 8 billion times in your life, but you're going to see it 8 billion and one times. And so this is our forward-looking statement. Please only make purchasing decisions based on features that are generally available today. I will be making some forward-looking statements in this presentation. So just want to make sure that while I want to deliver everything on my roadmap, sometimes things change. And so, again, please only make purchasing decisions based on features that are generally available. And so from an authorization experience standpoint, these are all the features that fit in the authorization experience product family. That's profiles, the entire permissions framework. I don't own every single permission, but I own the entire framework. And so when we say that, that's like the system, the user, and the CRUD permissions. I also own field level security, permission sets, permission set groups, delegated admins, set up audit trail, the release update framework. Again, I own the framework. I don't own every single release update, but I get lots of feedback that, you know, there's some frustration there. So maybe at some point we'll be able to prioritize some work there. I also own a really cool app called User Access and Permissions Assistant. And also I own a brand new feature that basically I came to Salesforce with this idea a year and a half ago that we needed to build this, called User Access Policies. And something you should know about me is I've been at Salesforce just over a year and a half. Prior to joining Salesforce, I was a customer for almost 18 years. And a lot of those 18 years spent as an admin, managing teams as an admin, managing teams of admins or scrum teams of admins and developers. So very familiar with the platform, and I'm very intimately familiar with some of the struggles that admins and developers experience on the platform. So as far as focus areas, and we'll get into some roadmap in a little bit, but I wanted to talk about what we're focused on from an authorization standpoint. So the first area that we're focused on is improving the admin and developer experience. So we have some gaps with permission set feature parity with profiles. So we're going to be working through those. Delegated user management, also known as delegated admin. We actually have some really exciting things coming in the summer release for delegated admin. That feature has not had some love in a while, so we're giving it some much needed love. User access troubleshooting. So many times I talk to admins and they tell me they're spending 40 to 50% of their day troubleshooting. And what are they troubleshooting? User access, where they get one user calling them, why can other user do this and I can't? And it could be so many different reasons why. And those reasons could be because you're missing CRUD access to an object, or there's some sort of sharing issue. So what we're looking at is a way to allow you to look at a specific user or two users and compare and understand why one user is able to do something and another user is not able to do something. And also something that when I talk about the end of life of permissions on profiles always comes up is the user experience for permission sets. This should be actually permission set groups, not groups. But when you're looking at a permission set, it's actually really hard to tell what is actually in there. What are you granting access to? And then what's even harder, and I talked to a customer about a month ago that accidentally essentially gave every single user in their organization, which is 7,000 users, the ability to customize app and manage users without realizing it, because they added those to a permission set that was assigned to 8 users. And they thought it was just 8 users that had access, not realizing that that permission set was included in almost every single permission set group that users had access to in the organization. So those are things that we want to surface up to help our customers understand what they're doing and essentially warn you of things and be like, hey, do you want to do this? You're going to be giving this access to 10,000 users when you change your permission set. We don't have anything like that today. So those are things that we're going to be working on. And there's overall permissions management, something that I was super passionate about when I was a customer and still extremely passionate about. And Gonzalo can attest to this because we talk about it almost every day, is this ability to split up, modify all data and customize application and view all data and view setup and configuration and manage users. And the ability to have granular customization and granular permissioning. Because what happens is right now, modify all data covers so many features that are not modifying all data. The good news is my team has done some work under the hood for our permissions framework to make it a bit easier for teams to split permissions. So my team actually owns the manage users permission. So you're going to start to see we're testing out our framework there. And so you're going to see some more granular permissioning, which will solve, I think, almost 20,000 points on the idea exchange. So you'll see that coming over the next couple of releases. And then from granular customization, what we hear from customers all the time is that they have separate IT teams managing different areas of the platform. And customized application is all or nothing. You can't say, oh, you can customize cases and these 5 objects and case assignment rules and a couple of list views. And then this IT team can customize opportunities and a couple of custom objects and quotes. And sometimes you can't do that today. So those are the types of things that Gonzalo and I are partnering very closely on. And then also improving user access control, access policies, which I'll talk to you about a little bit later. Access changelog is something that's coming that we're also going to be delivering alongside access policies. And then something that I have on my radar, and if any of you have requirements around multi-org user access control, this comes up with a lot of our enterprise customers where they have, and this is not so much you're a partner working with a lot of different customers, this is more you're a customer with a lot of different orgs. And having multi-org user access control. If you have a need for that, I would love for you to reach out to me. I'll share my contact information to discuss some of your use cases. And I see somebody waving their hand. I would love to talk to you about use cases. This is not like something I'm going to be delivering in the next couple of releases, but this is something that myself and my colleagues in the identity space are starting to think about. What do we need here from a roadmap perspective? Because we hear it, so we're starting to formulate a product vision for this so we can deliver features in the future. Something I want to mention is you may have seen the announcement that went out. If you haven't, profiles are not going away, but permissions on profiles will be. The end of life is planned for spring 26. So what does that mean? Is that essentially we want to get to a place where you can have role-based access control or persona-based access control. And it's really the best practice. This is really the why behind the end of life of permissions on profiles. Think of a role, not like role in Salesforce, but a role like a job function or a job role. And this allows users to have access, to the information they need to do their jobs. And profiles are giant monoliths. They have so many constraints. If there's any developers here, if you try to, or even if you're using things like chain sets and DevOps Center, profiles cause a big problem there. And so the future is permission sets and permission set groups. And really one of the benefits and one of the things that we've heard from customers for a very long time is that profiles allow you to express a persona, but a user can only have one. And what sometimes happens is you have support users and you have sales users, for an example, and you have two different profiles, and every year, everything's great as an admin until your boss blacks you or comes by your desk or sends you an email and says, hey, those users over here, guess what? They're going to be doing support and sales. And you're like, wait, what? And then it's up to you to figure out what that access looks like. And you end up creating what I like to call Franken profiles, where it's a hodgepodge mishmash of two different profiles and user access. And so what the benefit is that a user can have more than one permission set group. So if you have a permission set group or persona for sales and one for support, a user can have more than one. And then the long-term goal is profiles only contain settings that require one-to-one relationships for users. And so let's talk about what should be in a permission set versus a profile. And so permission sets, this will have your system permissions. That's like your app permissions, your system permissions, your user permissions, your object and field permissions, your connected app access, your Apex classes and Visualforce pages, your tab settings and custom permissions. Now, profiles. The minimum access profile, I know some of you say, but it's only available for the full CRM license. Well, I'm excited to tell you in the next 2 releases, you will start seeing minimum access profiles coming for all of the licenses. And we're starting with the platform identity, and then we will deliver for the Experience Cloud licenses and other licenses. So it's coming. And then your defaults, your default record type and your default apps. Page layout assignment. This one I was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. Let's leave it on the profile. And then I started talking to customers and they're like, and the reason why I said that, I'm like, the future is dynamic forms. The future is App Builder. And then I found out there's still a lot of customers on Classic, which means they're not using App Builder and they're not using dynamic forms. And that's because we haven't announced an end of life for that. And I'm not saying we will. Don't say, I'm just saying that there's still a lot of customers units. That's one. And two, from talking to the team that manages App Builder and dynamic forms, they still have a lot of work to do to really make dynamic forms available on all of the standard objects, as well as there's still some things you have to configure at the page layout level. Which means, and from talking to customers, they're like, well, I end up creating all these different profiles for page layout assignment. And so really, you're not making me have any less profiles, which is really what we want. We want you to have just a few profiles and expand all the access to permission sets and permission set groups. But because there's such a difference in record type and page layout assignment, this is something I'm starting to rethink. And when I say it's open for debate, I'm debating with my colleagues on what we should do here. So originally I was like, yeah, you talked to me a month ago. I was like, yeah, this is going to stay at the profile level. Now I'm like, maybe we should change that thinking. And that's one of the things that's great about being a product manager. I can change my mind. I can change my roadmap. And I do that based on the feedback that you all give me. So if you see something that you're like, that's Cheryl, that's a terrible idea. Those are the things that I want to know because, yes, I was a customer for a long time, but I worked in large enterprise banking for most of my career. I probably have a different perspective. And I love hearing from customers. And I want you to challenge me and I want you to tell me, this won't work for us, or this is not a great idea, or I'm stressed out, or I'm not sure what to do. And so here are my but what abouts. These are the questions that come up. And there's a couple more that I don't have on this slide that have been coming up a lot recently since I made the announcement that I'll also address. The first question I always get, I remember when I started talking about this at TDX last year, they were like, what about like the field creation wizard? I must have had this question 30 times. If you haven't seen it, in winter 2023, we had an open beta, and it's still an open beta for spring, and we'll go GA in summer, where you can see permission sets in the field creation wizard instead of profiles. What about the default record type and the default apps? Like I said, these will likely stay on the profile, but we absolutely need to improve that experience. That experience is terrible even for profiles. And so when you create a new record type, you see this page and you're like, oh, great, I need to give it to these 8 profiles, and it's going to be the default on these 3 profiles. And then you need to change that. And that means you need to go into every single profile and permission set, which is a terrible experience. It should be something quick. It should not be something that takes you 30 minutes, which is what's happening. So we're going to be improving that experience. Now, page layout assignment, as I mentioned before, this is something I'm figuring out. What do we need to do here? And then the other thing that comes out, what about App Exchange and package installs? When I install an app from the App Exchange, it tells me what profile should I install for? And it tells me system admin, all profiles, or I select a couple of profiles. We're going to be addressing this. And this also will have a problem we hear from customers a lot. I was talking to my colleagues who manage both packaging and some of the features on App Exchange. And what they hear from customers a lot is that they want to have essentially selective app installation. They want to enter criteria about users, and that's who should get the app. It's not necessarily everybody in a profile, especially as we're getting to these more minimum access profiles where you need them less and less. So that's something that we'll also address. Something else I hear a lot from customers is, where do I start? How do I get started? I've been using profiles for 15 years. I don't know what to do. And we have 300 profiles and I have no idea what's in them. I realized that I need to add something to my roadmap. And this has been a realization over the last 3 weeks. And we need to have some sort of tooling or an app or a feature, I don't know what it is yet, that allows you to analyze your user access and suggest which permission sets and which permission set groups you need. And then you can decide whether you want to create them or not. And there will be something where you can affect that change and create them and take that suggestion. And then something to migrate users. What I had been focused on based on the initial conversations I had with customers when I started 1.5 years ago is it was very much like, how do I migrate my users and how do I automatically apply access? And this is so much work. So we focused on user access policies, which allow you to enter criteria-based attributes about your users or about their entitlements to automatically apply access. And you can have an active user access policy to apply access upon user creation or edit or update rather. But I really didn't think about what do customers need to get started. And since we made the announcement, this is something that's come up and something that I realized I need to add to my roadmap. I just don't know what the thing is yet. So I'm hoping that maybe I'll have a formulated product idea by the time we go to TDX in 3 weeks about what we want to do here. And then I'm hoping by the time we hit Dreamforce, I'll have some sort of roadmap around this to figure out what, how, what, who, what, where, when, why. And so that is something that I definitely have realized that is a problem that we need to address. And then I also get these, and how do I? And so how do I migrate my users to the correct permission sets and permission set groups? I have to do this manually. So user access policies is in closed beta. It's still in closed beta for spring. And then we're going to go to open beta in summer. And then what I just mentioned is thinking about how to structure my permission sets and permission set groups. And we need to provide best practices. We need to provide documentation. Also, I mentioned we probably need to provide some tooling, you know, and I think I underestimated how many customers were still operating only on profiles, and we're really going to struggle with this. So like I said, we need to build some tooling. I just don't know exactly what it is yet. And so I do want to talk about some best practices so I can leave you here with, what can I do today? What can I do to get started on this journey? So your permission set should be task specific. And what I mean by that, it means they should encompass everything that's like a job to be done. So like account and contact management, opportunity management, as a bunch of custom objects that encompass a specific job to be done. And that permission set should encompass all of the object and field and system permissions necessary. And make sure I always tell people until we improve the UI, make sure you have your description in there because that's really going to save you until we fix that UI. And make permission set groups for your different personas. So as I mentioned this earlier, unlike profiles, a user can have more than one permission set group, allowing them to work across multiple personas. And then you can also reuse your permission sets in multiple permission set groups. And I think I know what your next question might be. Well, I don't want every single persona to have all this access that's defined in the permission set. Well, this is where muting comes in. Muting is a feature within a permission set group where you can mute the permissions that you're getting in the permission sets that are assigned to that permission set group. So let's talk about the account and contact management permission set. You'll have all the CRUD access, view all and modify all for accounts and contacts. And I can't remember if there's system permissions for accounts. Maybe you have something in there like around managing list views, and maybe there's some other, a bunch of custom field access and standard field access. But you only want your sales managers and your executives to be able to delete accounts and contacts. For all of your other permission set groups, you can mute that access so you get maximum usability of that permission set. Something else I want to manage and that I want to mention, and something else I hear all of the time from customers is, but wait, I'm referencing profile names in my flows and my validation rules and my formulas. Don't do that. Don't do it. And I'm not even just because of this. You create so much extra work for yourself. You change that name, you delete that profile, you add another profile. You have basically just made yourself all this manual work to go manually update every single formula validation rule. What you can do is you can create a custom permission that's in a permission set, and then that custom permission can be used in your formula, in your validation rule, in your flow. It could also be used in App Builder and dynamic forms to actually display. So again, it gets to this maximum reusability. So you're not going into every single thing and updating it. Something else I want to mention is a couple of releases ago, we put out the ability to expire permission set and permission set group assignments. And so this is now generally available. So you can temporarily grant access to a permission set. And so this was actually an example that I actually heard from a customer where they actually had a group of users that were managing a certain area of the company, and that person was going on maternity leave. And so they needed to give temporary access just for a few months. And they were actually planning on building some sort of flow or adding a calendar invite to remember to take the access off. You don't have to do that. You can actually expire the assignments now. We also have this went GA last year, but I put this slide in here because I feel like a lot of admins are not aware of some of the powers of event monitoring. And so this is for, you have to be subscribed to event monitoring, which is either in the full Shield package, or you can subscribe to event monitoring individually as far as your licensing. And there's a new permission set event where you can monitor. But admins, what you can do with this is, until we really break apart these permissions, if you want to block people from getting modify all data or customized app or 15 other critical permissions that we're tracking, you can do that through a transaction security policy, or you can set up alerts as well. And something else I mentioned, so we are, second most requested feature I get for my feature area besides reporting on permission set assignment, which I actually have an update, but I don't think I have a slide for it yet because I have a really cool update I got that I've been working with my team on. So you can turn this on in user management settings. And so you'll be able to see permission sets. And we've also, for the spring release, have added even more things here, which I'm really excited about. And I can't wait to show you what's in there for summer, which we're about halfway done with now. So I'm really excited. User access policies, we put this into closed beta. We announced this at Dreamforce. We're still in closed beta for spring. We'll be in open beta for summer, which means that you can turn it on yourself. So there'll be another setting on user management. You can turn it on. So user access policies, this is the future. This is the future. And this is what user access policies do. So many my customers that I talk to, so many admins, they are managing spreadsheets. The amount of spreadsheets that I've seen from customers where it's like, when a new user is set up, they need to have this permission set, these 18 licenses from the idea exchange, these groups, these queues. And I was talking to an admin. She's like, oh yeah, every time I set up a new user, it takes me 45 minutes. 45 minutes. And she's like, yeah, and some days and some weeks we hire a lot of people and especially around the beginning of the quarter, we get a lot of people changing. And she's like, sometimes it takes me 4 weeks to do these updates. And I'm like, wow. And I've also spoken to customers who have a lot of user access changes going on, and they have to create all these spreadsheets and use the data loader. And it is so much work, and you can't do a lot of testing there. So what user access policies allow you to do is they allow you to, as I mentioned, and if we have some time, I can give you some demos. What this feature allows you to do is to set criteria about your users. So that criteria can be user attribute based, meaning fields on the user record, like a department, or you have a custom field, or it can be entitlement based. And that entitlements, you can be what their users with a specific profile, users in a specific role, users who have a specific license, users who are assigned to a specific permission set group. And then you can apply multiple actions. And what those actions are, and you can either grant or you can revoke. So it allows you to do some easy cleanup as well. So if you realize you have just a mess and you know what you want to clean up, this will help you. And so from a grant and revoke perspective, you can grant and revoke permission sets, permission set groups, permission set licenses, package licenses. Those are the licenses from the App Exchange, as well as groups and queues. Now, the 3 most common requests I hear from customers of additional actions that they want are chatter groups. I also hear territories and roles, and those are all things that we're considering. I don't know when some of those things will come, but we're going to likely have them before GA. My guess from a GA perspective is we're looking at probably spring 24 for GA, if I had to guess. And so I mentioned this a little bit, but what will user access policies allow you to do? So personas for new user setup and job role changes, because we've also introduced the capability in the spring release for you to have an active user access policy. So it will just run when you create and update a user. Adding and removing access en masse. If you're adding, deploying some functionality and you need to create a new permission set for that functionality, and you cannot deploy users are data. So what this allows you to do, because it's criteria based, you can create your permission set and your user access policy and deploy that. And because there's criteria in there, you can then click the button that says apply to users that meet that criteria, and then you can also activate it. Business migration. I know when I was a customer, I was constantly, we need to change this user access and that user access, and it was so much work. And I'm hoping to help customers simplify this. Salesforce mandated migration. We're going to mandate you to move your users to who are assigned to profiles and move them over to have assignments on permission sets and permission set groups. And also there are some ISVs who are creating some more granular licensing. You can also use this to move to more granular licensing instead of having to manually reassign all the package licenses into new permission set licenses. And then from a feature perspective, we support App Exchange licenses, we support Salesforce licenses, we support permissions from permission sets and permission set groups and queues. We're also considering putting this as an action and flow for some even more use cases. And something I'm working on, which will probably be there for Dreamforce, is the ability to have a rollback, which means that if you do a mass migration or you have an active user access policy running and you realize, oh crap, I made a mistake and there's a lot of people who have a lot of access they should not have, you'll be able to go in and see when that ran, and you'll be able to roll back, and it will create a reverse that user access policy for you and put everybody back to where they were before. And then granular permissions. This is something that is near and dear to my heart, as I mentioned. And I don't actually know if this is the correct number anymore. I actually ran this probably about, 5 months ago. It's probably more. It's over 70,000 points. So I touched on this before. So you have use cases like, I want my support admins to be able to customize cases. Is there any way to do this without giving customized application? I have to give modify all data to our marketing user to be able to edit some of our email campaigns. Why? Come on, Salesforce, fix this. These are actual comments from the idea exchange. And I totally, this all resonates with me. First level support needs to be able to log in as our sales users. Either I have to give delegated admin or modify all data. Both grant too much access. Please create a permission for this. And so these are things that we're going to be addressing. But what I want to talk about specifically is in the customized application space. And this is why I invited Gonzalo, because we're working on this together. Now, we don't have an exact timeline for this, but everybody has agreed this is the way you should go. And the reason why I said that, so first, when I started looking at this, when I joined Salesforce, I'm like, let's just split the customized application permissions. Right now, today, not even thinking about splitting permissions, if you have a lot of our products, you will potentially see 861 app and system permissions on a permission set or profile. And then if we split customized app, that would bring that number up to 4,000. Asking you to remember and understand 4,000 permissions is not a good ask. That is creating an additional nightmare for customers. So Gonzalo and I put our thinking caps on and we said, well, how can we solve this? What if we introduced a new construct that could be associated to a permission set? We don't know what this feature is going to be called. Everybody, like I said, everybody has agreed that this is the way we should go, but we need to line up some things. We're calling it a metadata group, where you can add different pieces of metadata. Think about the case object, case assignment rules, a couple of custom objects, maybe some fields, things like that, and associate that to a permission set with customized app. And then that permission set is assigned to users. Those users can only customize what's in that metadata group, because essentially it will scope down the access that's on that permission set, only granting customized app. So that's what we're thinking, because then you only have to know customized app and only what's in the metadata group, instead of trying to understand what 4,000 permissions are on a permission set, which is just not a fair ask. And even to try to build a UI that supports 4,000 permissions, there's never going to be a great way to show that. So that's what we're thinking on how to solve this problem. And something else that we're starting to work on, and I mentioned this earlier, is so many admins get a call from a user. Why can Jane do this and I can't? Well, and it's regarding a specific record. What if we gave you the ability to say, enter a record ID, select 2 users, and understand why Jane has access and Joe does not? Well, she has access because she's in a sharing role, and because she has read-write access to the record. And that's why that the user doesn't have access, because for you as an admin to go through every single permission that the user has and every single sharing rule and group and manual sharing and every way that somebody could get access to a record, it takes forever. And there's no great way to do this today. So we're looking at, so we have an app called User Access and Permissions Assistant. So we're looking at bringing something like this. We have the Analyzer tab into the Analyzer tab to allow you to do this. So this is something I don't know. I'm hoping I can get this done by the end of the end of the year is what I'm hoping for, but I can give some updates as I get a little bit further into our roadmap. But this is something I think will help admins, because every time it makes me cry inside a little bit every time when an admin tells me, yeah, I spend 50 to 60% of my day troubleshooting user access and I can never actually get to any innovation. That's terrible. One, nobody wakes up and says, you know what, I'm going to go troubleshoot user access today. Nobody says they want to do that. They say, I want to innovate to help improve the lives of my salespeople and my support people. And I want to build cool flows and I want to make their jobs easier. And I want to do innovation. Nobody wakes up and says, oh yeah, I'm going to go, troubleshoot permission sets. No, but that's not what people want to be doing with their time. But unfortunately, it's what we force admins to have to do with their time. So we're trying to bring some tooling to help there. And so from a roadmap perspective, so in spring, which some of you have probably already gotten spring, so user access policies, we're still in closed beta, but I do have I'll send everybody the link to the form. If you are interested, fill out the form, but please pack your patience. I have hundreds of requests, but I am enabling every customer that's on enterprise or unlimited edition. Enhancements to the field creation wizard, delegated admins in the tooling API, and we're making some additional improvements to permission reporting. In summer, we're going to get to an open beta for user access policies, which means that you'll be able to turn it on and enable it yourself. Field creation wizard, including permission sets, will GA, more granular permissions for user management, permission set groups and delegated admin. And this actually may get moved out. This is currently, we do look at essentially a line with my line of confidence. The minimum access profiles for platform and identity may actually push to winter. I should know a little bit more, but I'm just being transparent. And then further out, I mentioned the metadata group for delegating configuration, compare access to two users, improvements to the record type assignment, and permission set group improvements. And that's both on the UI and messaging and just how they work overall. And so that's pretty much everything I have, but I do see some questions that came in, and let me see here. I am interested. Oh, somebody sent me the message. Yes. Let me C Feldman at Salesforce, because I'll lose that after the meeting. C Feldman at Salesforce. I'm going to type in my email here if you're interested in having conversations with me. Shoot me a note. Okay. So I would love to answer any questions you have, any concerns you have. I know I think, Terry, this meeting goes until 12:30, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got 17 minutes. So pretend it's true to the core and rapid fire.
So feel free to unmute if you're comfortable with that, or you can throw questions into the chat window. However you'd like to do that. This is a great opportunity to get some questions answered or share some of the trouble points that you have currently in this area. I think, Cheryl, one of the things that I was happy to see you cover was when do you use a permission set versus a permission set group? Mm-hmm. And your explanation is exactly what I've been sharing with my customers. So I was happy that I was sharing that in the right direction. So, so that was very good. I did have a question on when a user changes positions within the company. Is that the access policies that you're talking about? Is that what would manage the movement of their?
Yes. And so what we don't have today, so if let's say you have somebody that is a support manager and now they're going to become a sales manager, right? So that's likely a whole different set of permission sets and permission set groups. If they still need access to both, they'll have it. What we don't have is a way for you to articulate within a user access policy to say, bring a user back down to 0 before applying this access for this persona. which is what I've heard, because what customers are struggling with is they struggle with a lot of over permissioning due to job roles. So that's not something we have today, but something that's on my roadmap. And actually, I saw a question in the chat from Chris. Do you know if there has been any consideration given to shifting many items from being profile-centric to more application-centric? Yes, that is actually what my proposal is to the team that manages page layouts and record types. Similar to what you see on the app builder, where you can say, is this for the org? Is this for an app? Is this for a specific profile? And maybe we have it, for a permission set group there. And so that is something that's actually essentially my proposal, what I'm proposing, but I don't know. So yes, I'm considering it. Let's see. Does muting permissions need to be included in a group, or can it be a separate permission? So a muting permission set is assigned to a specific permission set group. I'm not exactly sure what you mean there. Do you mean that if a permission set, if a group doesn't have a specific permission set in there, can you mute it anyway? The answer is yes, you can. So if you want to always prevent that specific persona from, let's say, having customized app, you can just mute it in there.
Yeah, it was meaning, so having a user be able to create an opportunity, but we don't want it to be international, or we don't want it to be in this region. So we lock them into the one type. So can I have a whole thing about being able to create an opportunity, but then have that muting permission on the outside? Or do I need to create different groups for opportunity creation North America, opportunity creation Europe, opportunity creation? That's where I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, so today, muting is something that's very permission set group specific. Okay. Where I've realized we're struggling with muting, and this is something I actually wrote a whole doc up on last week, things we need to fix that I won't probably have time to do this year. But this is a thing that I realized we need to fix. Permission set group muting. So if you have a user let's say mute, I'm going to use customize app as an example, right? You have a permission set group, you mute customize app, right? And then you can have that user assigned to another permission set that grants customized app, but the muting is only for that one group. I believe the two things that we need, or maybe three things, we need user-based muting, where you can say, this type of user never gets this, regardless of what they get assigned and how. The other thing I think we need is to create more reusability on muting permission sets, because essentially it's a negative permission set under the hood. So you can reuse it, because I think what you're saying there is that you would have to create all these different groups and you have all this different logic on muting. As I start to formulate a product plan for that, I would love to reach out to you to chat with you about that.
Sure.
Let's see. App Exchange package vendors confuse permissions that are needed to just install a package with the permissions that are actually needed at runtime. Just use system admin. Any plans to help App Exchange? Yes. So I actually met with the entire ISV team at Salesforce and said, we need to put out some better guidance for ISVs for this very thing, as well as I've learned that a lot of ISVs are not even packaging permission sets or permission set groups. They're just giving you some permissions and they're saying, you configure your profiles and permission sets, and that ends up creating a ton of extra work for admins. And I totally hear that, and I know it's a problem. Let's see. Any plans to create a view all fields or modify all fields permission set? This is something that Gonzalo and I have spoken about, and also Chris Harrison, who works on the API side, and something that we likely need to figure out how we do. And I'm actually wondering, as we were talking about this idea of a metadata group, maybe we have some way that we can do that way. So the answer is yes, I want to, I just don't know how yet. Let's see. Oh, I think you're asking something a little bit different. So I think what you're asking for is on a permission set, if you want to say, somebody gets, modify all to everything and modify all fields on this object, you want to be able to just, sometimes to click each individual one. Yes, we're going to work on that. What I'm talking about is you have an integration user that as you're adding fields, you want to make sure that they have access to all the fields so they can either from a read perspective to extract all of the data, and it happens automatically. So it's almost, having, instead of having, it's like a math and a VAF, like view all fields and modify all fields or something like that. We have many systems, of which Salesforce is just one. We need to manage, request, approve, audit, user access across multiple systems. So our preference is to manage user access external to Salesforce with specialized identity management provisioning tools. However, Salesforce has a lot of nuances, and we've yet to find one tool that works well with Salesforce. Is improving external integrations for user management area. Yes, that's what we hope to achieve. So, Chris, I would love for you to reach out to me. I'm going to put my email address, and I would love to have a conversation with you and some of my colleagues and show you some things that we're thinking about, because this is across both the other teams I'm part of on the identity side as well. And I would love to hear some of your struggles. And we also have relationships with some of the vendors like SailPoint, Okta. I don't know what tool you're using, but we can absolutely have that conversation.
Other questions, Chris? That was a question I was going to ask as well. So I was glad to see you had asked it, because I run into that with some of the larger customers as well, where they're trying to figure out how to manage that. So that's awesome. Other questions from anyone? We kind of drank out of a water hose here today, our fire hose. So there's so much there that was shared. So any specific questions or pain points that you have that you'd like to share? Another question in the chat for you.
Some tabs are only visible on the profile, only controls, not only visibility tab. Yes, this is something we're working on. So I want to say we're probably about 2 releases out from that coming, but yes, it's coming. We're working on it. Is it okay that I send you? Yes, absolutely. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. So sorry, that was a direct message. I don't know if you wanted me to read that out to everybody, but yeah, feel free to add me on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter, on the Trailblazer community, anywhere I'm on social media. Feel free. Also, org-wide email addresses are only configurable with profiles. Yes, I know. This is so, the interesting thing is I own profiles, but not all the things that profiles are related to. There is another team that owns this, and unfortunately, they're a very, very small team, and they have a very large backlog. It is something that they want to do. I actually provided an update on that idea. They just don't know when it's going to come yet. And it's something that's very important to me and definitely very important to our customers. Is there a tool or upcoming report to manage all of these future changes? Do you mean future changes, meaning like reporting on permission set assignment, or can you clarify what you mean on an upcoming report? To view all permission profile and permission set. Yes. We're working on a couple of tooling things there. So one of the tools I mentioned is to be able to essentially look across all of your profiles and permission sets and see where there's similar access. Also, if anybody knows Liz Skates is an amazing colleague of mine, and she owns the licensing piece. Her team did everybody a solid at Salesforce, and they figured out how to get, and they solved the problem. The reason why permission set assignment, permission set license assignment, and other assignment areas were not available in standard reports and dashboards, like by creating a custom report type, is because we never used to be able to report on metadata. But she has actually fixed this. Her team went ahead and fixed this. And now you can actually create a custom report type on permission set license assignment. And guess what we're doing next? We're going to have the permission set assignment, the permission set group assignment, which means we can also open up reporting on user permissions. So we're going to be bringing a lot of stuff there. But if you ever meet Liz Skates at Dreamforce or TDX, tell her thank you, because she did everybody at Salesforce a solid. Her team really worked really hard on that in the last release.
I wanted to ask while we wait for others here, the custom permission. Can you dive into that a little bit more as far as the use case for those?
The use case for what? I'm sorry?
For custom permissions.
Oh, yeah. So custom permissions, let me actually share my slide again. Let me go back to that.
Yeah, I like that. Like that. And it seemed like there was probably a lot of applications for it. So I'm kind of curious.
Yeah.
A little bit more on that.
So custom permissions can be used everywhere in the platform. Formulas, validation roles, flow, app builder. Probably they also can be used in code. They can be used in Lightning components. They can be used in Apex. They can be used everywhere. And so what this means is you can create a custom permission. And let's say we have a custom permission that is like finance only or something. And let's say you have a validation role that blocks people from updating opportunities after it's closed, except for finance. Instead of specifying finance profile, you use the custom permission. But let's say you also have a little widget on an app builder that you only want to give access to finance. Instead of having to specify the profile or some other user attribute, custom permission. Let's say you have a flow, so you can keep reusing that same custom permission for that specific user access. And same thing with formulas as well.
So is it really just simply kind of a grouping of people, and then you're leveraging that?
So that grouping of people is defined, so that custom permission is on a permission set, and then users are assigned to that permission set.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then you're able to leverage it and reference that.
Yeah, instead of referencing that permission set name, that profile name. I've seen customers that have referenced, like I was talking to a customer, they're like, I can't reference, I ran out of space in my formula and I need to add another username to this. I'm like, why? Don't do that. And then I realized it wasn't working because somebody's, got married and their last name changed. And so I'm like, don't do that. Custom permission. And then you just have to manage it once.
Cool.
And I believe we do have a Trailhead module on this, so I will send that out as well. We also have one on permission set groups. I also have a couple of blog posts. I'll share them with you so you can share with the group afterwards.
Excellent. I'm getting flooded with a bunch of direct messages from people who are using it. So very good. You did mention earlier that if there was time for a demo.
We've got a couple of minutes. I can stay a couple extra minutes if you all can.
And if you can't, feel free to drop off. We are recording this, so it'll be out on YouTube later, probably this week.
Yeah. Give me 1 second here.
I also had a question from while you're looking for that is, will the slides also be available to the group?
I can create a version of these to be available. Just give me a couple of days to do that. Yeah. I see somebody shared the module on permission set groups. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks, Pearl.
Before I jump into user access policy, since we're in my demo org, that means I'm going to do a couple of demos for you, if you can stay a couple extra minutes. So this is user access and permissions assistant. So if I want to look at one specific user, and I'm going to look at Belinda here, and I'm going to look at her user permissions. Why the heck does Belinda have author Apex? Oh, somebody added it to the managed auth provider's permission set that she has access to. Or if I look at the standard objects, why the hell does Belinda have modify all records? Why is that? Why? it checks across profile, permission sets, and permission set groups, so you can see everything. Now, I do not recommend this user setup. I just set it up this way so you can actually see that. But that's something really cool that solves some problems, and we want to bring an experience like this in core against the user, so you can actually see this like in another tab against the user. We're going to be doing some work further. I also, one thing I don't like to tell people, because it's not everything on the user, but I do own a good portion of the user record as well. Let's see. So user access policies. So I have an active policy here. So policy has several different areas. And so you have your label and your developer name, and you have your trigger type. I have this trigger set for create and update. You can also have create or just update. And I have the status as active. My criteria is users that have a profile of finance and active equals true. And I'm going to grant 4 things. I'm going to grant the All America sales. I'm going to grant this queue. I'm going to grant the general Salesforce access permission set group and a permission set group for finance. And so I'm just going to go create a new user.
While you're doing that, on the screen on the second column, right-hand column, all of the user checkboxes that are over there, are those?
Oh, feature licenses. Yeah. I don't own these, but I want them off the user record and into permission set licenses. I actually wrote a document about this last night. Okay. Yeah. Because they can be troublesome for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, of course, let's see, and then finance. And magic. 2 permission set groups were assigned. Public groups were automatically assigned, and queues were automatically assigned. And so you can also use, if I come back to user access policies, so I have this one that's not in active mode. You can also use this. So if I want to preview users and I want to see who needs this, and I need to apply a bunch of access to people, I can see my list of users. I can apply to selected or apply to all. And so if I go ahead and did that, and I think all of these users actually already have the access that's defined in here. I didn't actually set up a demo for today, but what would happen is I could select the users and everything I have would be applied. So if I come back here, you'll see that I'm revoking this permission set, and then I'm granting all of these permission set groups, queues, another permission set group. Now, from performance, if you're like, I'm in a big org, how will this perform? From this preview users, we can handle up to 1 million users. So we've done a lot of scale work. Where we've seen some slowness, and we're going to improve that, is if, let's say, you select 5,000 users and you have like 20 actions. That's when we start seeing some performance degradation there. So we're going to start building some asynchronous work for user access policy, similar to how sharing works, where it will just work on the back end and then just email you when it's done. So those are some things that are coming, but that's what user access policies does. I'm really excited about it. And I will share the link with you, Terry, that you can share out to your entire group if folks want to, submit the form. But just please pack your patience, because it does take a little bit of time to get folks enabled.
Very good. Any last minute questions before we call it closed?
I had one quick one. Is there anything coming for being able to, you have an account manager who needs to share everything of all of their accounts, their opportunities with one individual, of being able to share with one individual without having to make a public group of one individual?
Mm-hmm. I don't know yet. I just took over this area like a week ago, so I'm still formulating a roadmap with the PMs there. But I would love if you reached out to me, and but I totally understand your use case.
You have so many groups that are one individual.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. So let me take that offline, and I will come back to you. But feel free to reach out to me, and as I start to formulate our entire user access control roadmap, I can let you know.
Thanks.
I think the biggest pushback or concern is how to manage all of this in a way that can be
Grouped into bigger category. And I think what you're saying there, and I'm making my own interpretation of your comment, Julia, is you have to go to so many places right now to grant user access. Permission sets are one place, permission set groups are another place, org-wide defaults are another place, object managers in another place. And it's just a hodgepodge of just all over the place. And so what I'm challenging my team with and challenging myself with is how can we unify this access a little bit and have a more consistent UI? I don't have a full roadmap for this yet, but it's something I met with my entire team last week that we're going to start thinking about and formulating a roadmap on and what we want to do there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just when you've got several thousand, tens of thousands of users, and you're now going away from a profile, which is grouped, right? Maybe we call this role XYZ role, a persona, this persona, that persona, and you group them that way. How do we do sort of the similar idea, but through permission sets and permission groups, and still understand what every person is getting? And I think that's going to be our pushback in how we do things. And I may even have my supervisor like reach out to you maybe just to see we just use the org in a really different way. And so how we would kind of roll through that process.
Yes, I would love to chat with you and your supervisor. So C Feldman at Salesforce, please reach out and let's set up time.
Sure. Thanks you.
Let's see. Could there be a button after we create a new permission set that might actually part of a user access? Yes, that's coming. So that will be something, if you're coming to TDX, come to the future of user management because we'll show you what that's going to look like.
Very good, Cheryl. You're fantastic. I just so much appreciate you taking the time and your availability to to share your contact information and give people the chance to provide you that direct feedback. That's fantastic. So thank you so much. Thank you for everybody who attended today. Feel free to continue to ask questions. It sounds like that's okay. So
Yep. And we have a great group in the Trailblazer community that's also called the Future of User Management. And myself and my UX designers, we all hang out in there and answer questions in there. So feel free to post in there.
Fantastic. Thank you again so much. It's been a pleasure. Perfect.
Likewise. All right.
Take care, guys.